I spoke a little bit ago with Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins and Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert Kennedy Jr. on how to make America healthy again. Please take a listen. All right, it's a big news day, but not only international and foreign policy in Ukraine and Russia, but also on the health side, very important. And joining me now, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Thanks to both of you. I appreciate it very, very much. Mr. Kennedy, Secretary Kennedy, you'll be doing everybody a great favor. We will owe you a real debt of gratitude if you can get these petroleum-based dyes or other dyes out of the kids' diets, out of the school children's diets, and actually out of the adult diets, too. Can you do it, sir?
Yeah, and you know, Larry, when we came in 6 months ago, and we said we're going to get rid of the 9 petroleum-based synthetic dyes that are in our food that cause ADHD, that are associated with cancers and all kinds of a grim inventory of other health injuries, people laughed and they said we'd never be able to do it. But what happened today, which is the dairy industry, has now made a commitment to get rid of all dyes by the end of 2026. And some of them are already taking action. Some of them already gotten rid of the dyes. We now have, with this contribution, with this commitment, we now have about 40% of the food industry that's already made that commitment. And 35% of the food industry had already gotten rid of the dyes. So we're very proud of this public-private partnership. I'm very grateful for our partnership with Brooke and with our partnership with the industry. We cannot make America healthy again without the cooperation of the American farmers and American industry, and they are stepping up to the plate, and we're very grateful to them.
Well, and you know, Mr. Kennedy, I was listening to Marty McCary last night, your FDA commissioner, obviously, talk about why it is that these kids growing up, are in such lousy health. And it has so much to do with what they're being fed. And this dye business, petroleum-based dye, even in ice cream, I got to tell you, I didn't know it was in ice cream until I read up on what you all were saying. I mean, it's really quite remarkable, but there's got to be an urgency to it, a real urgency to it.
There's urgency, and, you know, FDA also is stepping up to the plate. We've already approved, fast-track and approved in the last 2 months, 3 new vegetable-based dyes. Today, we approved a new vegetable-based dye, blue dye. So, you know, we're going to make sure that these companies and this industry has the supply chain so that they're able to get the products that they need to continue to meet the needs of their consumers, but in a way that keeps our children healthy.
And Madam Secretary Brooke Rollins, my dear friend, it's up to you, I guess, to implement this with respect to what, food stamps and school lunches and other things?
Well, that's right. And listen, this partnership we talk about a lot is unprecedented, never before in American history. Do you have an HHS secretary who is just simpatico? We talk almost daily, working together to make America healthy again. Bobby Kennedy understands more than anyone that you can't do that without American agriculture and the American farmer. Our announcement today outside on USDA steps. But to your point, Larry, USDA spends $400 million every single day on our nutrition programs, SNAP, prison programs, school lunches, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is a market mover in terms of what we're feeding America. So being able to ensure that our farmers, especially some of our smaller farmers, have the market in which to sell their locally homegrown produce, but also working with the big dairy producers, the ice cream makers, all of the above, to get the healthiest, best choices out into America. But especially as you're talking about, Larry, you know, 3 out of our 4 kids couldn't pass the military readiness test today. Something has to change, and Secretary Kennedy is leading the way, and we here at USDA are here to support him in every way we can.
So just to make it clear, I mean, can you get waivers and or change legislation, or was anything in the one big beautiful bill that would stop this? You know, food stamps, SNAP, school lunches, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you're the Lord High Executioner. He's the information guy on this. You're the Lord High Executioner. Can you execute this?
I have to say, I've never been called the Lord High Executioner before, Larry, but I love you so much. Listen, to your point, yes, USDA, and we've been working with some of our best governors across the country, Arkansas, Indiana, Iowa, Idaho, Tennessee, et cetera, to get the waivers put into place so that taxpayer dollars through SNAP are no longer buying sugary drinks and junk food, which is what a lot of the populations that rely on these food stamps, that was the #1 purchase within the food stamp program, was sugary drinks, $13 billion of about $110 billion program. That is unsustainable.
Secretary Kennedy, just on a related matter, but somewhat distant, the former president of Harvard University, Larry Summers, who was Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, I'm sure you know Summers, Secretary under Bill Clinton, when they moved, they had great reforms on welfare. They moved from welfare to workfare. He's out there saying in the New York Times and elsewhere that the Medicaid reforms, the eligibility reforms for able-bodied, will cause 100,000 people to die. I mean, I think that's an outrageous claim, Secretary Kennedy. What's your take on that? Can you fight back on that?
First of all, there's no cuts on Medicaid. There's a diminishment of the growth rate of Medicaid, which is bankrupting our country. And by the way, the national debt is also a social determinant of health. If we're leaving our kids with these giant debts, they can't afford health care. They can't afford good food. You know, in 1996, when Larry Summers was working for President Clinton, they put in the TREMF program, they put in a work requirement. Mm-hmm. And it was regarded as one of the most successful poverty diminishment programs in the entire Clinton administration. Oh, you know, in recent years, Obamacare included Medicaid was designed, Larry, for people who were poor, for children, for mothers. And it was expanded during the Obamacare to include able-bodied Americans, and the growth rate went way up. The hospital services and doctor services are no longer available for the target population. This is not a good outcome, and we're bankrupting the states. It is the biggest expense for all of our states. They're all going bankrupt. We've got to do something to fix it. And luckily, we have a president who's willing to do that. We're not going to cut Medicaid, and there's nobody who's going to die from this.
That's right.
Well, I think Summers has a very bad case of amnesia, and I'm glad you pointed out the fiscal side of it. Madam Secretary, last one to you. Have you figured out a solution to the immigrant workers, the illegal immigrant workers in the travel industry, the hotel industry, meatpacking, farm? What's going to happen here, Brookie?
Well, the president has been unequivocal in his support of no amnesty, mass deportation. If you've broken the law, you've broken the law, while at the same time saying we have to do everything we can to protect our farmers and our farm workers. Secretary Lori Chavez DeRimmer, one of our colleagues from the cabinet who is really, really great, has opened up an Office of Immigration Policy over at Labor. She is really looking to solve this very, very quickly, but ultimately we have to move to a 100% American workforce. Now, a lot of this, Larry, I think you can appreciate, can be solved through automation. We are looking at that very closely and working with a lot of our great farmers around the country, but also ensuring we've got so many job openings in America. It actually may even go back to what Secretary Kennedy was talking about, the able-bodied men and women in America who are not working today. Now, will they be filling all of the farm openings? No, probably not. But this idea of dignity of work, Larry, you and I talked about a lot in the first Trump term. It's time to return to that theme and that great righteous vision of every man and woman in America having a job and having the ability to provide for their family. So there are a lot of solutions on the table, and we're moving forward.
All right. Secretary Kennedy, we appreciate it very much, sir. Secretary Rollins, we appreciate it very, very much. We'll talk some more on all this. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you,
Larry.